The ego is a lot of the nations hold a common belief about the ego. They share about knowledge and understanding and protection and guidance, which is true. The ego is it's high above the sky, high in the sky. It flies above any other creature on earth. And it's got such keen eyesight that it could see while it's hunting from way up there. So our belief is that, our common belief is that it's watching over us. It guides and protects us in this physical world. But when we leave this world, the ego spirit guides us, protects us to the spirit world. So when we hold an ego feather, that symbolizes that belief. Again, connection. I don't know if everybody knows what cockles are. They're a type of clam. And what you do is at low tide in a sandy area, you could go in the water with bare feet, and you could feel like a lump in the ground there. So you just reach underneath, and there is a cockle. So my mom, when I first went cockle picking with my mom, she cracked open the first cockle and she ate it, and she looked at me and she said, "Son, when you find your first cockle, you have to eat it. You're honoring the clam." Ever since that very first day when I was a kid, when I go cockle, crack my first one open and I eat it. But when you go clam digging, you're not only clam digging for yourself. If you get a 5-gallon bucket of clams, that'll feed 5 families. And that's, again, giving, it's sharing. And you feel so good inside when you see the expression that, you know, some of the elders, the ladies, they cry and they go, "Thank you for thinking of me." And that's the gift back to you, is that expression, that thank you, and, you know, that we thought of them. And that's the way we should treat life, is we don't have to go give the whole Canada cockles, but, you know, the word spreads. If we make good, good is going to happen. And you're asking me what it's like. It's you should see the people when they find their cockles. They're all happy. They show each other. It's like, again, remember what I shared earlier, is sharing a common belief. Something in common makes us happy. We went cockle picking down in Twanik. It's just further south from Thornby Island here. I worked a summer program with the kids, and the staff, they could see what we're doing, and they're going, "Look at Wesley." They told me later, "Look at Wesley, look what he's doing. He's picking and putting it in a bucket." And so they walked over and they saw me. They go, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm getting cockles." I said, "These are cockles." So you should see the adults. They went out there and they're, oh my God, they just turned back to their childhood. They turned back, they were so happy. You could see the expression on their face. Again, see, that gathering is a happy gathering. And that's what we need more in life, is that those happy gatherings. Especially when you go, you know, yes, it's killing life when you shoot a deer, but it feeds families, right? It feeds families, and it feeds guests feeds guests when they're coming in. Again, we're sharing something in common. We're sharing a meal. Well, I'll go back to what I was sharing about what I learned about the 4 worlds, how we originated, the universe, the star nations, the plants, the spirit, the supernatural beings, and human beings. Here we are, human beings today. The water connects us to other countries. We don't think about that. That, you know, we're here on the same planet, the same earth, that we just got to sit down and listen to people, listen to what they have to say, and more or less respect. We don't have to believe, and we don't have to start practicing what they believe in, as long as we respect it. And that's another big word in life, is respect. If, again, we respect our lives, then we'll respect nature. Look what's happening in the world today. We're polluting the air, we're polluting the waters, and that's a life source. Water and food are our life source. Without that, we would not be here today. So again, we need to hold a common value. You know, what are we leaving for generations to come? You know, we should be leaving what we have today for them. But again, you know, with what life is challenging. Life is it's very distracting. You know what's going on with technology today. You know, like those days that we lived a long time ago, they're gone. Because we're different. We're living in a different life, a different era. You know, technology has taken over. Technology has taken over, and a lot of our beliefs and values, because we're changing them. We're not abandoning them, but in a way we are for something else, and that's changing who we are, changing the way we look at life. What we need to do is to share something that will benefit future generations. We need to share ideas about how to stay respectful and honorable, and you know, create harmony and balance in our lives, so we can hand that down to our children, so they have something to believe in, they have something to value. And that's what it's all about, is to follow your beliefs and your values. You know, the parents teach us their beliefs and values, and sometimes we question it. We can take a lot of what they teach us, but we don't have to accept it all. And to me, our life is our life, but we have to respect other life, and that's important. You know, we have legends, we have stories about supernatural beings, like we brought up about Senko, double-headed sea serpent. You know, what is that? All we know that our people had left pictographs of the double-headed sea serpent, and for me, I can't say our people, I should just say myself, I haven't heard what the origin of the sea serpent was all about. And I believe that it's a supernatural being that, you know, when it's down in the bottom or of the ocean or whatever, that it could be in its physical form, could be in its spiritual, supernatural form. And when it surfaces in the water, if it surfaces, it could be in physical form where people witness that they saw it, you know. And a lot of people disbelieve them when they see it, so it makes them question their beliefs. And now what's happened in life, we question our own beliefs, and we got to get back to what we've been taught and how we got here today. We need to hold something in common belief, common value. Then we're heading in the same direction. And we'll get back to the word connection. The world is 75% water, 25% land. Human beings, we have 75% water and 25% solid. So we are like the earth. That's what connects us to the earth. We're born into the world, born into the earth. When we go to the next world, the spirit world, we're given back to the earth. Our people used to live here on Thornby Island. It connected us with those who used to rest here on their journeys, so we could hear their stories, and you know, maybe somebody got married up north and they're passing through, so we could meet them here. You know, that just came to me. That's me saying that, not my nation saying that. Yeah, that's what it could have been. You know, like you catching the cod or the prawns, you know, they would smoke it to preserve it, and a lot of them buried it, you know, in a deer hide or whatever, or sea lion skin or whatever. They would bury it so the air wouldn't get to it, so it would preserve longer. So that was like our refrigerator, preserving our, and the smokehouses for, you know, whether it's deer meat, salmon or whatever, they They used the smokehouse to preserve our food, so seasons were important. How we stay connected. Look, we had the eagles up there. You know, when we was talking, singing up there, it's connecting with us. And what we need to do is connect back by saying, we appreciate that. We appreciate you singing to me. And you don't have to yell it out, you could just think it. And the Spirit takes it from there. But one thing we could do is share stories. That's how we'll connect, is by sharing our story. Share who you are. Share where you're from. You know, you don't have to share your whole life story and whatever you have, because, you know, a lot of people don't have that time. Just come back. I'm not finished. I'll tell you another story. But yes, stories connect. Yeah. Well, you always remember when you caught your first fish, right? That happy feeling that you had, and who were you with? You're going to remember that for a lifetime. That's your connection. And when you go and share that salmon or that cod or the crabs or whatever, that's your connection. They're going to remember, oh, geez, I remember my first time I had a crab, I got it from Quinn. That could be 20 years from now, and they have their own families. So that they remain connected, even though you may not see one another again. The connection is still there by the memory and the spirit of sharing something. There's different seasons that we can go hunting. That's what we don't think about when we go to the grocery store. You know, that connection to that cow that we're having for, you know, steak or beef stew or hamburger, you know. But we're happy. We're happy that we're getting fed. But at the same time, there's no ceremony. We're not better than the next person. You're equal. Just like I was sharing, we're connected. We're not better than the tree. We're equal to the tree. We're not better than the cod.
I connected with the ocean through my grandfather, who was a sailor and still is a maritime painter and historian. And grew up sailing with him and fishing with him and exploring kind of the southern BC coast with him, and then was fortunate to get to do a lot of big ocean kayaking trips on the north coast in Haida and Alaska, and that opened me up to new areas to explore, and it's just always been a place that I wish I could spend more time and wish that I could learn more about. The vast majority of the ocean, no one gets to see. And we don't know anything about it. And it's so hard to understand and learn anything about it because it is such a challenging environment to work within. Fortunately, there are a lot of brilliant scientists that are studying these areas, and as technology improves, we're able to learn more and answer more questions. But with every question that we answer, I feel like there's got to be a dozen more questions that are created. I think everything that I learn about these environments just creates more questions. I think it's really important to learn about these environments because as humans we're having a tremendous impact. I'm sitting here on the beach, and you know, between you and I can see over a dozen pieces of plastic and, you know, pieces of wood that have paint on them or other things. And we are having an impact on these environments, and we need to understand what those impacts are and what we can do to ensure that these fish in these environments are able to cohabitat. I was fortunate in grad school to be able to study coastal cutthroat trout in northern BC and trying to understand their behaviors and habitat use and kind of what they're up to. You know, a species that people here care about and are interested in, but also a species that we don't really know anything at all about. I think every one of these rivers and every one of these streams will have a slightly unique life history. You know, we have general ideas about how long they spend in the ocean, but I think that that's going to vary among streams. And yeah, I did do a little bit of work with coastal cutthroat trout in the ocean, and we tried to track them using acoustic receivers, and it's really challenging. I mean, it's such a challenging environment to work in. We just about lost all of our equipment. We had a hard time finding the fish. and an even harder time trying to relocate the equipment in the end. And I mean, like, you're literally looking for a needle in a haystack, trying to just recollect the equipment you need to record any kind of data.
We've seen up to 7 wolf eels on one dive, and we've seen wolf eels out more often there than any other dive site. It's a bit of an advanced dive for sure, because to get out where the wolf eels are, you gotta, you gotta move a little bit, so you get a bit of a dive in out there and see them all. We've seen, I've seen dogfish or mud sharks, but that's mostly in like the Egg-o-Minimon and also the channel, and also at, we seen a dead one outside of an octopus's den at the Back Eddy pub in Egmont. I figured maybe the octopus got a hold of them, and because octopus are pretty powerful creatures, and that was a big octopus that was in that den. So the dogfish was pretty big too. He was what, about 5 feet, I'd say. Yeah. But anyways, and he was completely gutted. So, and I figured the octopus probably did that. They have a beak, and that's how they break open crab shells and stuff. Whatever the size of their beak is, that's the size of the hole they can get through. So you can have a massive octopus and he's got a beak this big, he can get through a hole that big. You breathe more air. The more depth you go, the more atmospheres you're in. And of course, at 33 feet, the pressure doubles. It's 66, it triples. And then it's 4 times at 90 feet. So basically the atmosphere, so whatever the pressure is, you got to breathe in that much more air in order to fill your lungs. And the other limitation is the no stop time, because if you go into decompression, you've got to stop. And people are, if you're set up for that, if you're not a sport diver, like sport diving, you're not supposed to go into deco. You're supposed to stay within the limits, so it's called a no stop time. But if you go into deco, that means you have to stop, and you have to decompress at a certain depth. Your computer tells you, and then you got to do it. And if you're running low on air, you may not be able to stop, and you might get bent when you hit the surface. So, and there's a lot more current those areas. You have to plan your dive quite well, because you can get swept away in the current, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you got to be careful with checking currents and tide tables and everything to make sure that you're going to be safe. Yeah, Andrew and I dove the Skook one time, and we rented a boat and we tied it up, and we dropped down, and at 15 feet we found an octopus's den, and he liked clams. But he had clamshells all around, but they were all empty. And then we went a little further, about 25 feet, and then there was another octopus's den, and he liked rock scallops. And he would actually had some live ones outside of his den, so if he didn't feel like going out, I guess, he could just reach out and grab one and pull it in and eat it that night instead of going out and finding something. So it's kind of neat. And then the clamshells, if you take your light, and octopus have a little drill, and they'll drill in and they'll put a poison in there, and it'll weaken the clam. And if you hold your light against the shell, you can see the little pinhole there, so you know that the octopus got that. So I've had octopus grab my arm. They were never really huge ones, but the biggest octopus I ever seen was at Lookout Point, which is White Cliff, which is in Vancouver or West Van. And you go around the corner, and Lookout Point is part of the park, but it's over there. But they don't allow you to park out there anymore, but back in the day when we used to dive it. Anyways, Andrew and I went on a night dive, and we went down, and there's a shelf at 40 feet, there's a shelf at 60 feet, and there's a shelf at 90, and I think there's one at 120. Anyways, we went down, and we went across on the shelf at 60, and there's this huge octopus sitting there on the rock. Huge. His mantle was, I would say, 6 feet, and he had all his tentacles and stuff curled up, so I don't really know how big he was, but he was probably really big. And it was amazing to see him there. And then I said to Andrew, I'm looking around, Andrew's not around anywhere, and I see him over there. I said, Andrew, come on over. He goes, no.